Hi, everyone, and welcome to So, What's Your Process? The show where we talk with creatives from all fields about what they do and how they do it. I'm Allie Dalsimer,
I'm Kyle Dalsimer.
and who do we have today?
Well, we've got a really exciting one today. He is one of the best musical theater performers working today. Washington Post called his Helen Hayes Award nominated turn as Jack Kelly in Newsies vibrant. He has performed on Broadway, off Broadway, toured across the nation, and performed at some of the top regional theaters in the country. Currently, you can catch him as Fletcher in the Broadway company of And Juliet. Please welcome to the show, my friend and yours, it's Dan Maldonado.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, Kyle and I don't know if he told you this, Kyle and I saw you at Arena Stage in that Helen Hayes nominated performance as Jack Kelly in Newsies. We were sitting right in the front row, and it was a great performance. You were great.
Thank you so much. I do remember that. God, it feels like it was so long ago, but still so recent. Hashtag COVID, the pandemic really made things feel like it was so recent. But yeah, God, that was such a fun show. I miss that show every day.
Yeah. And that was 2019. And here we are, 19. 6 years later, and your career has just continued to skyrocket. You were you did the out of town tryout for Moulin Rouge, and then you joined And Juliet, and you've been with that company since original cast. Am I right?
That is correct. Since Toronto, actually, since before we even got to Broadway, the original North American company. That's me, and then Broadway company as well. But yes,
look at that.
So maybe folks who aren't familiar. Tell us a little bit about the role and what you're doing.
Yeah, of course. So if you don't know And Juliet, it's a little bit of a remix of Romeo and Juliet. We just asked the question, what if Juliet does not kill herself at the end of the show? And that is kind of where our show takes off. And it's being actively rewritten by Shakespeare and his wife, Anne Hathaway. And it's all set to music from the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, written by one of the greatest pop writers and music producers of our modern time, Max Martin. So it's all his music. And, we're singing Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, Katy Perry, Ariana Grande, all of the above. So if you love that music, you got to come see it. I am actually a swing in the show. My character name is Fletcher. We have a fun little thing. All the swings have their own individual personalities, which is a little bit of a rare thing in theater. Usually swings are told to kind of just do exactly what their the role they cover does. But we get to have like our own little fun personalities. But I'm a swing in the show, which essentially means I got to understudy everyone in the entire ensemble. And I also understudy Romeo.
And which is a crazy task.
It's just a cool take on this show. It's I need to see it.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great. And I caught the show a little while ago. And it's wonderful. And I saw Dan on. Great work as always.
Thank you.
I think with swinging, that brings up a really interesting thing where you get to build your own character and have that. That's not always the case when it's not usually the case when you swing. As you talked about. So that brings up the conversation of how do you personally go about building a character for yourself?
That is a great question. I learned a lot in college, and one of the best things I got out of college is that there's no one right way to do anything. And it's more about like what you take away from something. So a lot of people I know have a process of, I have to read the script 10 times. I'm writing notes in the margins. I'm writing all my beats out, my objectives, all that stuff. And I definitely, I commend that. Sometimes I do that if I feel like it's necessary. But I find for me, what works best is like kind of seeing what naturally happens. I will obviously read the show once through just so I can know what's actually going on in the show. But I generally like to just like see how I naturally react in the moment and then kind of build from there. Cause I find that there's more discoveries once I kind of just like give myself the freedom to do whatever I want to do. Versus like trying to get really intellectual and think about exactly what I want to achieve here. Because then I feel like that pigeonholes me a little bit. And like if I write out this one objective, or if I'm like I have to do this entire scene, this is what I want the entire scene, then I feel like I'm locking myself into certain spots. Whereas like if I allow myself a little bit of freedom of what I want in the scene, I'm allowed to, if there's one day where I'm a little more tired than another day, I can, maneuver that how I'd like to. But yeah, I just kind of like just take a crack at it, read through it once. It's going to be bad. It's not really a, it's not a perfect science. And I'm certainly not giving you a final product when I start rehearsals. But then as rehearsals build, I discover more things. I work with the director, I work with my scene partners. And then I'm able to create the character that, you see on stage now. And even still, it never ends. I'm still finding new things on stage. Anytime I'm on for Romeo, I find a new thing on stage to do. Depending on who my Juliet is or my Shakespeare or whoever it is, there's fun little things and also audience energy. Sometimes the audience is great. Sometimes the audience is silent, and you have to, work through that. And what choices can you discover there? So yeah, I kind of just like to give myself freedom. Within parameters too, like I'm not going absolutely bonkers, but I just like to not pigeonhole myself with the textbook sort of things that you learn in school.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So one thing you said really jumps out at me, and that is the audience energy. I think a lot of times when people are watching a show, they don't realize that they, as an audience member, in a lot of ways are a participant. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the impact or influence that an audience has when you're doing a show.
The audience is the unspoken X character in the show. If there's a show of 5 people, the audience is the 6th character, because the audience really does add a certain something to the show. And I'm not even talking about, like, obviously in a comedy, laughs. That's a big way. Like if you get some laughs and you can tell the audience is enjoying themselves, smiles, that goes a long way. But even in more serious shows and more dramatic shows, if you hear the audience get affected, if you hear a gasp, if you hear an oh my God, or an audience member who like leans forward a little bit more in the seat, we can see the audience. If anyone who's ever been in an audience doesn't know, we can see you. Pretty much.
I think people don't know.
People definitely don't know, but we can see you. So how you are reacting to what you are seeing, it keeps us in the moment in a lot of ways. But yeah, the audience is a huge part of our journey, and it's an essential character in the show, because they, one of my favorite memories is when I've done Next to Normal, which is a really gripping piece. At the end, I'm hearing people, whether I'm on stage or not, but I'm hearing people like sniffling. I'm hearing people, gasping because of like a discovery that happens in the show, and I'm like, oh hey, we're affecting people here. And that's like a good reminder of why I do what I do. And same with Anne Juliet, when people are laughing and belly laughing and smiling and dancing in their seats, I'm like, okay, yeah, we're doing something special for people here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings up something that's really interesting about you as an actor, is that you are someone who really is a triple threat as an actor, a singer, a dancer, and you can play. You can lead a show as a title character, but you can also be an ensemble performer. You can pretty much be put anywhere in a show and benefit it. And so I'm curious about your process when you take on, a role like Gabe in Next to Normal, or a Jack Kelly, or something where you are leading the show in some degree, versus an ensemble track and a track like Fletcher here in Anne Juliet. Does your process change? Is there a difference in your approach to those?
I definitely think there is like inherently a difference, because there are parameters. As much as I like to say that, I like to kind of be a little loosey-goosey with the process of a principal, there are parameters given to you as a principal role. You have lines, you have scenes, you're working directly with the director who has a vision as well. The show has to go a certain type of way, and you have to stay within those parameters. You can be loose within the parameters, but you have to stay within the parameters. And same with an ensemble, but because an ensemble, and also a principal the writer has written who you are as a character. Like you get in direct information from the writer as to who the character is. And the ensemble, you don't have that. It is very much, you don't have any given circumstances. You're not, ensemble character unless you are a featured ensemble character. You don't really have much information or backstory as to who you are. So an ensemble, you kind of have a lot more free. In the ensemble, you have a lot more freedom to kind of do a little bit more, to create your own character, be a little fun, be a little sassy, be a little, maybe meaner or whatever. You can create your own version of your character within the parameters of the show as a whole. And it's fun. It's definitely a lot of fun, to be in the ensemble and be able to like kind of be yourself a lot more than you would have to be in a principal role, I find. Like when you see me in the ensemble, most of the time I'm just being beyond silly and just being myself fully. And I'm definitely silly as Romeo, but I'm silly as Romeo versus silly as Dan, So yeah, I definitely think that there's some benefits.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So it's almost like you bring yourself to a role rather than the role overtaking you. Maybe.
Little. I do find that I try to bring myself in every one of my characters as well. That is a huge important. To me, it's very important to see you as a person shine through the characters you're playing, even though it's written for you. Because that's how you make it more realistic, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I find that like in the ensemble, because again, you don't have the word lines written to you. These characters are there to as true like support of the storyline. It's not about the storyline is not about the ensemble necessarily. They're there to help and support and lift. So you get to have a little bit more of that freedom to just be yourself 100%,
Yeah, I like that. So something you said a minute ago actually triggered a question that I wanted to ask. And you were talking about how, when you're doing a role and you've got directors or writers who have given you parameters. And I'm wondering, has there ever been a time when you've been, doing a role and there's been a moment or a note that a director or writer has given you that has just completely shifted your perspective or how you have approached one of your characters that's been significant in some way?
Oh, all the time. That to me is one of the best parts about doing a show. As long as you or your director are not being, pardon my French, assholes about how you approach it. Because there have been plenty of times where I've been making a choice. To me, it makes sense. I like the idea. And then I'll get a note being like, hey, you can't do that. And I always ask, why? Like, what about it is, can you give me a reason why you want me to not do that and do this instead? Or sometimes it's even more collaborative and the director will be like, hey, I like the idea of where you're going for, but instead of that, can you think of it like this? And then instantly I have 10 ideas and choices of inspiration that come from that. And I'm like, oh, this will be good. I actually really like that. That's much better than what I was doing because I was a little confused and a little muddy. And there's that's the best part about it, of this all, is that it is such a collaborative effort. I love the collaboration of theater, which is why anytime someone asks, like, what's your dream role? What's your dream show? I had a long list and I've been fortunate enough to check off a lot of them. But now my dream show from now and forever is to just do something new, and always do a new work, because that to me is like where I really feel like I can create something, be as creative as I possibly can, put my stamp, my stamp of approval, seal of approval, my mark on the show, and have true, complete creative and artistic freedom. But yeah, that happens all the time. Disagree
Yeah.
amongst the directors and actors.
Absolutely. I've had that many times too. And it is such a when you get that one note that opens the entire character up for you, when a director says something you never thought of, it really is kind of a mind-blowing moment and can change everything about how you're approaching.
Exactly. Exactly. It's something that's so simple as like, can you like take a pause before this? I'm like, oh, wow. Yeah. Now I have total, because initially I'm like, why am I taking a pause? And I'm like, oh, that's why I'm taking a pause. And then there's still plenty of moments where I'm like, why the hell am I taking a pause? It doesn't make sense. I don't understand. They don't really quite seem to understand either. It just kind of makes sense. And sometimes you just have to roll with those punches as well. Again, all you have to hope and pray for is that you're not working with someone who, you know, it's their way or the highway. And if you complain, it's bad. It's rare. That's all you can really hope for, you know?
Mm-hmm. And building on that, I want to ask you about, you know, the job of the theater actor is so different from, you know, from a film actor, because in film, you know, you go on set, you do it a couple times. If you mess up, you can call it, let's do it again. You can take different takes, but at the end of the day, it's a finite, you've done this shot and then you're moving on. For you, you know, sometimes, you know, 8 times a week doing the same beat, doing the same moment, things like that.
Week after week after week.
Week after week for, you know, you're in a long running show now. You guys have been open, what, two years now?
3
years now.
Going into year 4, yeah.
Which is not common for a Broadway show. So I'm curious for you, do you ever have the internal battle of, you know, trying to get it quote unquote right? Do you have the am I doing it the way that I want? You know, and having those redos every day pretty much.
And how do you stop from being bored?
Oh my God. Okay, yeah. Well, let's get into
a lot. It's a lot right there.
How much time do we have? That's a great question. I think in the beginning, yes, especially being an understudy, there is an element of feeling like you have to prove yourself in some ways, and therefore it has to be perfect every time. And especially like this goes back to our conversation about the audiences earlier. If you do have an audience that is just quieter than other audiences, doesn't mean they're not enjoying it. They're just quieter, you know. It can feel like, oh my God, I'm doing something wrong. They don't like it. I'm not getting the same laughs that I usually get. I'm, you know, maybe I'm not in it. Maybe something's not right. Maybe I'm not being honest. Maybe I'm not like, you do go have those moments. For me, at this point now, being 3 years into the show, having done basically every single thing I could do in this show, I'm past that hump, I find. Especially like when I go on for Romeo as a principal role, like I've learned and I know I can trust that what I'm doing is good. Even if the audience is quiet, they're quiet for everyone. It's not just me. They're quiet for everyone. And if it is me, and maybe they just don't like me, that's fine. That's one audience's opinion for me that day. Because then another time I play Romeo, they are laughing at every single joke and thing that I say, and it does not matter. You know, I could do anything. I can inhale and they'll laugh, you know? So, like, it's taking that and recognizing that, just trusting yourself and knowing that like I am doing good work. And then you no longer have to prove yourself. You will have, and knowing that there are going to be days that I'm just not here right now. And I need to be able to still do the show. And I need to trust that I can do the show the way that it needs to be done and tell the story that in the way that it needs to be told. And I can't try to seek perfection, because some days it'll be there. Some days I'll have one of the best shows I've ever had. It felt like, and it felt so good doing it. And some days I'm like, I just want to go home. And at the end of the day, both versions were good. I think it was Stark Sands said this story of like your internal worst show and your internal best show is actually like the scale is like this small. If for the listeners that can't see, I'm it's barely an inch
apart.
It's about an inch apart. That's the actual parameters you're working, but it feels like it's like this big, like the full screen apart. That's what it feels like internally. But in reality, to an audience member's perspective, it's this. You know, your worst show is still going to be one of the best shows that an audience member has seen. You know, and so once you like start thinking that, you no longer feel like you have to strive for perfection. Don't get me wrong. When I move on to my next show, I'm going to be thinking I'm going to be striving for perfection every single time. But that's also like the art of doing theater, is that I always tell students or anyone that I work with that you are never going to be perfect, ever, in this business. And the more you tell yourself that I am not going to be perfect, not in a negative way, like I don't want you to sit here and like stare at the mirror and be like, you're bad, you're not perfect, but it's to encourage you to continue to learn. You never want to settle. You never want to reach a point and be like, I am the best ever. And I like to say I'm God's gift to musical theater. You're not. There's no person who's God's gift to musical theater ever. And the best performers in the industry are people who still constantly strive to learn and do better and learn a new skill or discover new things, or that no one ever settles. Like I always use Meryl Streep. There's 0% chance of Meryl Streep is just like, well, I know I'm going to be good at everything I do. No chance. And it also keeps it interesting to follow up about like, how do I stay from being bored? Fortunate enough for me, my job is like it's built in to be different every time. So every time I do the show, I'm on stage for a different person, which keeps it interesting. And as tough as they are when we do things like split tracks or cut shows or whatever, it really actually keeps things very, very, very interesting for us. And yeah, there are still also some days, some weeks where, you know what, it is a job at the end of the day. I'm living my dream. I am, doing something that I know tons of people would kill to do, but it is also still a job. It functions like a job. I still get paid. I still deal with some like issues with my boss. It's like every other job that exists in the world, right? And that is a hard thing to kind of cross over, going from something that is like a huge passion, a dream, and now all of a sudden your dream and your passion actually do become your full-time job. That is a hard like threshold to cross and come to terms with. But once you do, which I feel like I have, and I punch in, I do my job, I have fun, I go home. Some days it's hard to be there. Some days I would like nothing more than to be at home. But like any other job, I'm still going to be there. I'm going to show up, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to go home. And then there are days that I'm reminded how special it is what I'm doing, so it kind of bounces back and forth. And that alone keeps it from being boring.
It's really, so there's just a lot in there, Dan. Thanks for all that. I just have like a million questions now. I have new questions. And I love how you keep from becoming complacent. And you mentioned Meryl Streep, and it occurs to me that maybe one of the marks of a really, really good actor is the fact that they can prevent themselves from becoming complacent, which is a really interesting insight. But that's
my opinion. I just
I think that makes sense, right? Because otherwise the performance is going to be stale,
right,
or inauthentic.
Mm-hmm.
But there was something you said, which was, you talked about how, you're living your dream, but at the same time, it's a job, right? This is your job. You get up, you go to work. It's 8 shows a week. It's a grind. I'm sure sometimes you have conflicts and dramas like every workplace does. And I'm wondering, like, how do you navigate that because regardless of what we just said, your job is just not an ordinary job. You're not going to the Safeway and being a checker. You're not doing what the vast majority of people do. You are doing something that huge numbers of people would love to do, right?
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that?
That I still think is the mystery that I'm still trying to solve. I feel like my first year was really basking in everything that we were doing. I was exhausted, don't get me wrong, but we opened on Broadway. We went right into the holiday season. We were doing, press events left and right. Then we got nominated for a Tony, and we were doing our whole Tony campaign, and we performed on the Tonys. So basically from opening in November all the way through to like July of the following year, we were just riding on a huge high. And then reality kind of settled in, and I was like, oh God, how am I going to do this for a long term? But even still, that was so, like, it was just barely creeping in because I was still doing it for a year. My entire life was revolved around the show. If I missed events, oh well, I'm on Broadway. Who cares, right? And then we kind of hit another high. We did the Thanksgiving Day Parade, and it kind of continued going and continued going. And then it wasn't until about halfway through year 2 that's when reality kind of I didn't realize how much it was growing and growing and growing, but that's when it really, really hit. And what got me through it at the time was that I wasn't alone. Everyone in my company at the time, it was still majority of the original Broadway company. So we were all still in it together. They were some of my closest friends at the time. So we were on the same schedule. So we could still hang out and, see each other and feel like we were having a social life and to some degree. And I have a very close knit group of personal friends who are also so understanding and willing to work around my schedule so I can go hang out with them. And I never really feel like in the first 2 years that I was missing out on anything. Obviously there were events that I couldn't go to, but to be honest, I don't know if I would have gone to them even if I had the time. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, okay. Then year 3 hit and most of my work friends had left and we had a brand new cast come in. And then there were only, I think, 4 or 5 of us left from the original company in the show. And that was when the real reality, I had officially crossed that threshold of this is a job, hit, because now I had this schedule. I lost my good work friends that I saw every single day that made, coming into the show really easy and fun, and we all hung out and great. I'm not saying I don't get along with anyone in the cast. This is just like the beginning. It's like starting fresh again. Now I had
before you knew them.
Yeah, I didn't. Now I know them for a year. We're friends now. It's all good. But when we first started, I didn't know any of these people. They were much younger. They had just spent a whole month rehearsing, so they were very close. And I was like, I felt like the new person kind of coming into this, even though they were coming into the show for me. So then that was when the reality of like I needed to rely on more of my personal relationships. And then that's where I was like, oh my God, I can't foster any of those because I am operating on the exact opposite schedule of all of my personal relationships. And all of my friends, they can't always hang out on a Sunday night because they have work on Monday. And, it got tough. It definitely got tough. Thankfully, after about 2-3 months of, sitting in like a kind of a low place, it got, it got better. Definitely got a lot better. And now I found a good balance of this. That's where like the whole, like I come in, I clock in, I do my job and I leave. Cause that to me has been able to foster it was a mental shift. I can't quite put words to it, but it was a mental shift that I'm like, I can shift most of my time towards my personal life. And I will do that. And I will take the time off if I want to and need to. I have now learned to shift my perspective, and rather than putting a lot of weight on relying on my work friends to be a source of, my source of joy and camaraderie, I relied a lot more on my personal relationships. I trusted myself that if there was something that if I needed to take time off, because that's another thing that people, in the industry, it's like it's frowned upon to call out for your, mental health. And I've learned that like if I want to call out, I can call out. I don't need to put so much weight into just this show. If I need to take a break, I will take the break. I've learned to advocate for myself more. So when negotiations for my new contract come, can I get more personal days? Can I take more time off? Can I do this? Can I do that? A lot of it is met with no's, but at least I tried, and I know now what I can fight for moving forward, and that's kind of where I have settled now into like, okay, this is, I will call out if I have to, or if I want to, or if I need to. I will go to events that I want to go to and use my personal days to do that. I'm not going to like harbor all of it and think that I'm saving it for something super extra special, because there's really nothing ever really special enough to save those personal days for. Like, use them while you have them. I always tell everyone, like, call out, don't run yourself into the ground, because it is hard. Doing the show 8 times a week, rehearsals some weeks, it is hard. And your personal time and your work-life balance matters immensely. in this business, more than people realize, because you don't really realize it unless you are in a long running show, how important your personal time is, your me time. So that's kind of where I've landed there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back to something that you talked about a little while ago, and that was the chaos of like a split track and like things like that. If you can just a quick, for people who don't know, quick explanation of that, and also if you have like a crazy show story with split tracks or any other kind of things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, how much time do you have for the crazy stories? Because they could go on. The split tracks keep it interesting. As treacherous as they can be sometimes, for me they're exciting, because it's a show that we literally never do, and it's frankly always going to be different, because which track is going to be out when and how we figure that out, who's going to be doing what. It keeps it fun and it's exciting. And if people don't know what a split track is, essentially when you know enough, there are more people out in the show than there are swings and coverage available. There will be a show where there's a hole on stage, we're missing one ensemble member, and the swings, we will jump from track to track within.
Oh God, that's got to be hard.
Yeah, so some show, like some numbers, I'll start the opening number in one spot in one person's track, and then in the middle of it I have to switch to another person's track because of the picture, or because that other person does a set change or whatever it is. So basically we're combining tracks and creating a whole new track that doesn't actually exist, just to make sure the show can keep going. And yeah, I mean, I've done some crazy split tracks. I think the craziest one is I did do a split track with Romeo, because Romeo only appears at the end of Act 1 and in Act 2. So it's pretty easy to do a split track where like I was in the ensemble for basically the entire first act, and then left about a number or two early to go change and become Romeo, and then be Romeo for the rest of the show. So I was doing a featured ensemble role. I did do a quick change once, because Romeo does do one small little cross in Act 1 in the very beginning. So I did the opening number in the ensemble, ran off stage, quick change into Romeo, did the cross, came back, quick change into ensemble, did the rest of the ensemble track, left early, quick change into Romeo, came back and did Romeo. Like it's been, for me, that was probably one of my craziest ones. I've done 5 different tracks in one show. We've done countless craziness in this show. And again, to me, that it keeps it exciting. It's not, I don't want to do it forever. Like I can't imagine doing a whole week of split tracks. I've been there and it is not fun. But for the occasional one that it does happen, it's like, oh, this is kind of something new, something I don't do. And then, everyone in the show was like, wow, I don't know how you guys did it. I was like, to be honest, I don't know how I did it either, but we did it. And this show happened. But yeah, that's kind of,
that's crazy.
Absolutely.
That's actually crazy. I can't imagine all those quick changes.
And
it's
5
dark
roles
back there.
in one
like,
show.
It's dark back there.
Yeah.
I've been backstage.
Yeah. I will say the five roles in one show is what is crazy. There was I remember seeing that the in and out list that we have, like who's in, who's out, and it was like basically the entire page, and the split track sheet that we make. So essentially there's like a grid that they have, and it's all the characters, all the ensemble characters that are out, and then who's playing them underneath in each scene, doing what. There's a note section on the side that says, okay, and then even though this person's going to be in this track, at the end of this number, you're going to take this set piece off. Make sure you take that set piece off, which is usually taken off by a completely different character. And then the next scene, you do this, switch in the middle, do, all this stuff. We're cutting this, we're cutting that. There's not going to be this set piece anymore. So don't worry about that. It is. And then, you forget about all the little things, like the little set pieces are like, oh my God, that's in that scene. Right. Okay. You got to do that, or that can be cut, or, so it is absolutely stressful. After every number, I'm backstage, like nose deep in the split track list of what am I doing next? Who am I next? How is this going to happen?
This is crazy.
It is, but again, it does keep it. Talk about not being bored. It is not. That is the opposite of being bored. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that'd be like, please don't let me forget what I'm doing.
Exactly.
And also, just for those of us who don't know, what is a set piece?
Oh yeah, a set piece is like basically anything that you see on the set. Whether it could be a prop that's brought on stage and left on stage, it could be a chair, it could be, we have these giant rolling statues that we bring out in one number. I don't know why we have them, but we have them, and we, as the ensemble, bring them on. We bring on furniture. That is what I would consider, set pieces for me. And our show is one of those shows where the ensemble does bring on. We don't have really any automation. We have some flying set pieces coming in that are handled by our automation team, but for the most part, like furniture, like that includes beds, furniture, statues, chairs. Lamps, things that you see on stage is all brought on stage and off stage by the ensemble.
Wow.
So there are a lot of moving pieces in our show. So that's why when a split track ends, it can be pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's a lot. And you need to make sure they're there because they're going to be incorporated into whatever the next scene is.
Right.
Yeah.
Or we have to, our dance captain makes a decision. It's like, okay, we really don't need this lamp. It's not a part of, like, it's not pushing the plot forward. No one steps on it. No one sits on it. We can cut that lamp. So that this person
the lamp is cut.
The lamp is cut.
The lamp is cut. So I do have a question though, because I mean you're in a really fun, happy role right now, and that's pretty awesome. But not all roles are like that. You talked about Next to Normal a minute ago, and I'm wondering, especially for those heavier roles, do you have a process for how you get out of your own headspace and not go home and wallow in misery every night?
That's good. That's a good question, because there are some, I will say, I don't think I'm trying to think if I've done a show that from beginning to end, it is just, I don't want to say dark, but heavy. Because even Next to Normal, the finale is bright and it has like a positive message. So like a positive message finale kind of helps. We went from this really, really serious moment or scene into something that's a little lighter and brighter. So that helps. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I know whenever I felt like, if it's a song there or a scene that I've done. So I use Next to Normal as an example. The end, I don't want to spoil it, but whatever, I guess I will. Spoilers ahead. When, Dan, the father, sees Gabe for the first time and says his name, that is it's a big emotional scene, that whole build up into that, the song. And there would be days where I would come off stage and I'd be weeping. I'd absolutely be like in utter turmoil. And I would just have to I just in the moment have to shake it off and let the emotions ride, like let it run over, go to a corner, take deep breaths, calm myself back down. Thankfully, I've done roles where I'm able to do that. Honestly, I have a moment like that sometimes as Romeo. There's a really touching scene in and Juliet where Romeo tries to get Juliet back, and she, God, I don't want to give it too much away, but she rejects him and he's upset. And there are some shows where I'm like, oh God, this was like really, I just like take a second. My tears will not stop. So, and it's just, to me, the thing that I have to do is I literally just have to like separate myself for a second, take like deep breaths, get a tissue if I need it, and just like shake it off. And if it doesn't go away, thankfully, sometimes the next scene is a continuation of what I'm feeling, so I can use it in the next scene. For Anne Juliet, as an example, the next time you see Romeo, he's belting high B's. So it's like helpful to use if there's still lingering emotion from the first, or feelings from the first that scene prior, I can use it in the next scene, and it actually very much is cathartic to let it out. But then when Next to Normal, if I have to, I just have to like excuse myself for a second and then come back on stage. And thankfully that final song helps. It is another cathartic moment of just like forcing yourself into joy. Now I don't know how people do like I guess Dear Evan Hansen kind of is similar in that way, but I don't know how people do like a show where it ends and it's like Cabaret. I don't know how people do that. That is a dark ending.
Yeah.
And if there is a show where I'm really into it, ooh, I don't know. It would take a while to decompress.
Yeah.
But if I would assume that I would probably decompress in the same way that I do now. I would bow. I'd probably go off stage, shut my dressing room door, cry if I have to, like recompose myself and just head home. But yeah, and I think it's different for everyone. I don't know. Some people can bounce back like that. Some people really take on the heaviness, and that I feel like is you're playing with fire there. If you let yourself really get swallowed up in that, that much. But yeah,
There is though a real level of emotional and psychological investment. I think once you get to, the level of the top levels, the Broadways, the major regionals. Kyle and I actually went to see Cabaret not that long ago, and it was a gut punch for me just watching it. And I can't even imagine how the actors would recover. I did have another question for you, because something you said kind of sparked it. And I was wondering, in the roles that you that you've taken on, and I'm sure you learn a lot about yourself when you do this, because you're clearly investing so much of yourself. And I'm wondering, what is something that you learned about yourself that just completely surprised you, just blindsided you, that you didn't expect? Did you ever have anything like that?
I want to say I have, but I feel like I haven't really necessarily put too much thought into it. Doing theater has at 100% in every role has helped me open up from being a little bit more shy and a little more reserved to being a little bit more of a bigger personality. I've definitely learned that. And I don't necessarily if it was from the show or combination of doing the show and the people I surrounded myself with. Like, I know when I started in Juliet, I still was kind of in that, like, thinking about everything I'm saying. Like, are these people going to like me? Is this, struggling with making, like, being an extrovert. What is it? Introverted extrovert.
Introvert?
That's me. I love meeting people. I love hanging out with people. I love being around people, but I struggle with getting there sometimes. And I definitely did when I started in Juliet. And the show, but being as big, boisterous, and bubbly as it is, plus the people that are in the show have really, really helped me come out of that shell a little bit. And now I feel very confident when I walk into a new space. And I can talk to anyone now. I feel like confident talking to anyone. And I feel like I'm also confident to know that if I'm in the middle of talking to someone and we're not vibing, for whatever, not even necessarily in a bad way, just being like, oh, I can tell like neither one of us really wants this conversation to continue. Rather than forcing myself to do that, I can just be like, oh, I'm going to go. This was fun, something that I never thought I would have been able to do before the show. So I do think that there is an element of confidence that I have gained and learned about myself that was in there, but struggled to come out, and learning to be okay with whoever I am. Like, I know I have my friends. I know I have people that are on my side. And if I don't, if I'm meeting new people and we get along, fantastic. If I'm meeting new people and it's just not the right fit, that's okay. I don't necessarily need new friends. That is something I think I've definitely learned from being in this show.
Oh, that's interesting.
Gaining that confidence. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, I love that, actually.
I want to pivot just a little bit. So you are a graduate of Rider University's musical theater program.
Yes, I am.
Which is a wonderful program. I was there briefly, a little bit after you, and I think there's something really interesting in being someone who was once a student there, and now I know this was the case when I was there years ago, and is even more the case now, that you've gone from being someone who is taking those classes in those classes now to the people who are currently taking those classes are sort of looking at you as like one of the success stories from the program, one of the people who's sort of an idol in some ways. Is someone who is emblematic of of the success you can reach coming out of that program that they're currently in. And I'm wondering if that's something that you've thought about. Is that how does that make you feel?
It's so strange to me because it doesn't feel that way, but I do know that that's just like it is definitely fact. But it really doesn't feel that. I think it felt that way, and I was a little uncomfortable by it when it all first started happening, because I was the third graduating class with the BFA, so it was still very, very, very new. And there weren't many success stories out of Rider at the time. And being one of them was this sort of light shined on you that I wasn't expecting to have. And with the way the program was back then, it was, they were very much, it was huge. It was way too big back then. And the professors were overwhelmed, and the students, not everyone got the same education. I'll say that up front. And I think everyone could agree that it was not, they were still figuring a lot of things out. And because of that, I always was kind of in a light at the school. And it was an uncomfortable light. I didn't always necessarily like being in that light. I of course was grateful for it, and I truly attribute a lot of my success today to Rider. But sometimes being in that light can be blinding, can be really hot, can be uncomfortable. So when that kind of trajectory continued outside of it, it was still just as uncomfortable because there weren't that many success stories out of Rider at the time. So being one of like four, I believe 4 or 5, maybe 6 at the time, was like a lot of pressure. And it felt like it was reliving a lot of the things that I struggled with in school, because everyone struggles with things in school. That's just going to be a part of your college experience, especially in theater, because it's such a subjective subject and topic and whatever. So everyone has their struggles. So I felt like being in that limelight right after school and having that brought up a lot of struggles that I had in school. Now I feel like I'm so far removed, and I've healed a lot of the struggles and I guess traumas that I had experienced at school. And there's so many more success stories now. Like, I don't feel like I am like just the sole person now, and I feel like there are a lot of people who came in after me, who are graduated, who have found success, who are doing successful things, and I'm like, oh God, okay, now I feel like I was a little bit of a pioneer, and that feels better. I feel like I like that term better, as like being a pioneer, being one of the first people to bring Rider into a light versus just me into that light now. And that I think is kind of cool. I like the idea that I feel like because I was lucky enough to find success, and I was lucky enough to, tell people that I went to Rider, that helped some people later on down the, younger students to find that success as well. Because this business is so much of who you know, and how you know them. So that to me feels really cool now. But at one point it was not. At one point it was definitely a lot of pressure and a lot of like, gosh, I just kind of want to just be me and like step away from the school for just like 4 seconds, to not feel like I'm affiliated with the school for 4 seconds. But now I'm very proud to say I went there. I feel like a lot of students are finding success. I feel like the program has now really has figured itself out. What is it? Rounded the edges, whatever it is that phrase is. Smooth the edges a little bit. Smooth the edges a little bit. And that brings me immense joy to hear that it's like now, it's now where it wants to be. The program, the school.
Yeah, so that's a bit, okay. So let me ask you then, if your younger self could watch you performing now, what do you think he would say?
Oh God. I don't know if you would believe it right away. I don't know. It's hard to think. I'm trying to remember where I was then, because I feel like at the time, the mask I would put on would be, I know I'm good, but really underneath was like, I have so much work to do, and I still have so much work to do, and I still feel like that is something I bring forward now. But now I'm not as ashamed to present that. I still very much, I'm like, I have work to do. And I feel like now, I feel like now is a healthy mix of the two, because I also feel like the mask I put on is like, I'm really good, but I didn't always believe that, and I didn't want to believe that. And now I feel like, you know what? Yeah, I am good. I feel confident in saying that. I feel confident in saying that I am good, but I also have a lot of work to do still, and there's always work to be done. So I think it would be, seeing me now would be like, wow, okay, your hard work has paid off. You can get through whatever you're going through right now, and you will. And I think it would provide a level of hope, and I'd probably look at it being like, okay, there's like, we'll be okay, you know? Because I feel like back then it's just like, there's so much uncertainty, but at the same time, there's also so much, I don't want to say, it's not false hope, but there's so much like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, desire, I guess. And this thirst, this want to do it so badly, but also being so unsure of how to get there. So it's like this weird mix of the two. So I feel like seeing that would be like, oh, okay, we will be okay. You know, that's kind of where I'd be at. I think that answered the question.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I love that idea of there's still work to do, and we've got work to do, and I think that kind of underlays a lot of what you've said today. You know, with the Meryl Streep and with the you know, not thinking of yourself as, you know, God's gift to musical theater and all that. I think that really kind of underlays a lot of your process is knowing that you are doing good work, and knowing that you have accomplished so much that you want to accomplish, but knowing that there's still more work to do, and
Right.
and thinking about, you know, those next things, and creating new works and things like that. I think that kind of is emblematic of your process at its core, even going back to you know, the breakdown of how you break down a character, and you take a first pass at it, and you know it's not going to be there yet, but there's more that you've got to do. And
Right.
Yeah,
But there's also that collaboration and that need to have that social interaction, and, you know, struggling when the original cast left before becoming friends with the other cast, especially given the difference in schedules, and really having the need for that interpersonal contact, and also, you know, the why of the role,
yeah.
right? Like, that's really interesting, understanding the why of the role. I thought that was kind of interesting. I had one more question.
for
It's
it.
kind of just an off question, but
Go ahead.
if you could describe yourself using just 3 emojis, what would they be and why?
Let me hold up. Let me get.
Yeah, pull up your phone.
Pull up your phone, dude. It's
Pull
good.
up your phone.
Let me pull up the emoji list. Let's see this. There's so many. This is.
Yeah, you've got hundreds and hundreds of options. It's not an easy
Yeah,
question.
give me one. Just give me like 10 minutes.
I'm gonna start doing that music.
I know, right?
Kidding.
I feel like one of them has to be like I think that one, you know, where like it's the person with their hand up. I think people use it. They try to use it as like a hair flip, you know. Either that one, or there's a new one now where it's someone going like this. I think
The
that's
shruggy emoji.
shrugging emoji. I think that's a big one for me. I definitely use that one a lot. So I'm just like, is what it is, you know. And to me, I feel like that's like very reminiscent of like finding that confidence that I found in the past few years. Because it's just like, now I have no shame. If I say something that maybe is like, a little controversial, or not even controversial, but like I'll make a joke and people are like, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. I'm like, well, that's just me. Or I, sing a really high note and everyone's like, oh my God. I'm like, well, that's just me. So I feel like, I feel like that's a big one. Here's another one, the face palm.
Mhm.
I also very aware that I am an idiot and make mistakes and still have a lot to do. And I definitely use that one a lot. And I'm trying to think of common ones now.
I kind of thought you might have picked the one with like the sunglasses, just like chillin' vibe.
That one also, because what's funny is I don't use that one that often, but I feel like that makes sense.
Do you often describe yourself in emojis, or do you just use them to relate other things?
I definitely use them to relate to other things. That is 100. Oh, you know what's a really good one?
Yeah.
And this one I use all the time. The melting face.
The melting face.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna
Oh.
give you the one with the stars in the eyes.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Thank you. But the melting emoji is, that's just me, because I'm just like, well,
I love that.
another good day.
Another good day.
Paradise, as they say. But because not every day, some days are struggles. So that's why that's there. But yeah, I like those too. I like the sunglass emoji. I think if maybe let me shift my perspective a little to that sunglass emoji, that I'm just chilling there a little bit.
Yeah, lean into your fabulosity.
That's right. I should do that. Thanks.
Well, on that note, I feel like this has been really, really great.
Yeah.
Dan, I want to pass it over to you for anything that you'd like to share. Where can folks follow you and hear what's going on with you? Anything coming up that you want to share? Anything like that?
Totally. Well, coming up, not much. I'm still going to be in Juliet. We are not closing, or we're running long term. So we have no closing date. We'll be open. We're open ended, and I will be there for as long as they'll have me, or as until something else comes up, which has not happened yet. I do have some dates as Romeo if people want to come see that. You can follow me on Instagram, DanielJ_Maldonado. I'm also on TikTok. I make some really silly TikToks. You can actually see a little bit more of how silly I am on that. Same Daniel J. Maldonado. But I always post when I'm on for Romeo. And you'll definitely see that on Instagram. And yeah, come check out Juliet if you haven't seen it yet. Come see it on Broadway. Come see it, the national tour. We're having a brand new cast come in, and they'll be touring the country again for a whole other year. You can go to AnjulietBroadway.com to find those dates and if they're coming to a city near you. But if not, come check us out on Broadway. You might see me, you might not see me. I'm in the ensemble. I wear a beret. So if you see someone in a beret, I'm the only one in a beret. So you'll know that's me if you see the show. Or if you see a dark-haired Romeo, a black-haired Romeo, that's me as well. But yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great chat. And we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Yes, you will.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. And everybody go check Dan out on Broadway.
Check us out. Thank you guys so much for having me.
All right. Thanks.
So, Allie, what'd you think of Dan?
That was so insightful.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, man. I just feel like, we think about people on Broadway or actors, and it's like, oh, they're amazing and blah, blah, blah. And, here's someone who has struggled with his self-confidence, who feels like he's still really learning, and he's sort of one side of his brain acknowledges that, yes, he's good at what he does. I mean, he's on Broadway.
He's great. Yeah.
But the other part of him is like, I need to do better. I need to do more. I want to learn more. And I guess that's the mark of being, really, really successful, I think, is never being satisfied and always wanting to do better. But I really loved, I loved how personable and just genuine he was and how authentic he was. And I think it's that authenticity that he brings to his roles that must make him so good.
Absolutely.
Because they just really speak. And I found that a really, as someone who's not an actor, and obviously I'm actor adjacent, literally right now, but it's a very different thing to be around someone who's in a field such as acting, a creative field where you just invest so much of yourself, and a whole nother thing to actually experience it. That's like saying, yeah, I know what it's like to be pregnant because I've sat next to a pregnant woman. You have no idea, right? I mean, you can't know until you've gone through it. And I think acting is one of those types of things, maybe because it is a creative act. You're birthing a role.
There we go. Full circle. I love
circle,
that.
Baby.
And it also, I just piggybacking off of something that you said, there's this idea that I think is really, really interesting with that whole idea of being someone who's great at whether it's acting or anything in their field. It reminds me, there's a quote from a trailer for a new film called Him, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I think that film had a different meaning. But the idea of I'm not quite good enough yet, and having that mind, and I've got things I want to get better. I've got things that I want to improve on. That is the mark of someone who is great.
Yeah.
That is the sign of greatness. That is how great people think. And it's quite telling that is Dan's mentality, because he is, as I said at the beginning, he is one of the best musical theater performers working today. Obviously, he's on Broadway. Obviously, he's, playing all these different roles, understudying a principal role in one of the most successful shows on Broadway.
Right.
For the last
crazy.
We're
like
4 years in.
You said 3 years, but they have they don't have an end date.
They don't have
an
end date.
The show is so popular.
Yeah, I mean, and for
That's not
those
usual.
of you who don't know about Broadway, typically the lifespan of a show is maybe a year. A show will run for one season, it'll do fine, get a couple Tony nominations maybe, and then it'll go away and be gone, and then the rights will go out to the regional theaters. Maybe there'll be a tour. And Juliet has been running successfully on Broadway for 3 years now. They've got a Broadway national tour that has played. Dan actually was out on that tour. They sent him out for a couple months. We didn't get to chat with him about that, but he was out on the tour for a couple months and then brought back to
that would have
Broadway.
been a really interesting thing to talk about, the difference in process when you're on tour, going city to city to city every night versus being able to go home every night.
Well, we'll get him next time. And if Dan, whatever comes next for Dan, because I know that it'll probably be something big, maybe we'll have him back on if his next project is, maybe he's leading a new Broadway show in 2026. So we'll see. We'll find out. But in the meantime, that is a wrap on this week's episode. Thank you again so much for tuning in, for joining us with our chat with Dan Maldonado. And in the meantime, we've got another exciting episode coming next week. So what I'm going to need you to do is follow us on socials, and wherever you're listening to this podcast or watching, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you never miss a new upload. And with all that being said, Allie,
don't miss Dan and the rest of the cast in & Juliet on Broadway or on a company tour, because it's an amazing show. And until next time, please join us again on So What's Your Process?
Bye-bye.